Hi everyone and welcome to today's review. Today we're looking at another Robert Oster ink from the, here in the Ink Art Ink 15ml sample bottle. The ink is Frankly Blue. Now this ink is a very interesting ink and it came about in an interesting way. Just a little bit of background. Basically this ink was made for Frank at Federalist Pens to commemorate the 1 year anniversary of Robert Oster inks being available in the United States. So this was originally an exclusive to Federalist Pens, and a big shout out to Federalist Pens, and if you want this ink, check them out in case they've still got some in stock. It is available from a couple of other places as well. So I got this in the 15ml ink art ink bottle. It's a really interesting ink, sort of what I call a dusty turquoise. Just to put it into comparison with a couple of other inks, here's a Pilot Iroshizuku Amairo, and then another Robert Oster ink you might be familiar with, Fire and Ice. As you can see, it's a slightly more muted colour than both of these, with a lot darker shading, as you'll see in the writing samples. Let's have a quick look at the chromatography before we look at it on the paper, and here is that. As you can see, there's a really interesting sort of mix from that sort of bright, vibrant blue that carries up through to the top, and then little greens, and then some sort of dusty pinks and greys that sort of really are quite apparent when you look at the ink on the paper in a slightly odd way. So here it is on Rhodia 80-gram lined paper. As you can see, it's not a vibrant sort of turquoisey blue. It's almost sort of got tinges of teal with greys and greens sort of coming through. And actually, if you hold up the chromatography to the ink there, you can actually see there's a fairly sort of, you can see a few of those sort of colours actually coming through. I really like this colour. I think it's got a really interesting shading property, and in the lighter shades you do get that sort of grey and then a really nice sort of darker blue teal in the darker shading. I had this in 2 pens for this part of the test, and in a couple of other pens for other samples. First I had the Twisby Eco in a 1.1mm stub, and then the CaliArts Ego 2 in a fine nib. Both chosen because of their colour and blues and turquoises and all that sort of stuff. So as I said, this one was made for Federalist Pens, and to commemorate the anniversary of Robert Oster's inks being available in the US, and this was only last year. So the company, Robert Oster's company, has really done amazing work in a short amount of time to really establish themselves as one of the premier ink boutique ink companies sort of going around at the moment, with a huge range of colours, and particularly well known for their blues and greens, hence this fabulous blue. So how does it behave? Well, it's a really nice ink to write with. It's not super wet, but it's absolutely wet enough that you can use it in just about any pen and it'll perform beautifully. As you can see on the paper here, it shades just incredibly. That lighter shading through the dark colours, it's just a really beautiful sort of combination, and you get that in both fine and broader nibs. So, bleed. On cheaper paper it does bleed occasionally, we'll see that in a second, but on sort of good quality paper you really get nothing coming through, which is really fabulous. Like even the swab there sort of barely started to cut through. There's no feathering as such, but there is a little bit of spread on cheaper paper. Sheen, there is some halo on the Rhodia, and it is more visible on Tomoe River, but we even caught some on some sort of cheaper, less expensive paper as well. Shading is excellent and very apparent. Wetness is good, as I said, not overly wet, but really excellent. Cleaning is good. This isn't the easiest Robert Oster blue to clean out, because it is sort of quite saturated, but it does, you know, with minimal effort, you can get it out of just about anything. Value. Now, yeah, this is fair. Coming from Australia, to get this ink originally was going to cost a reasonable amount to get it out from the United States, but for those people in the United States, it's really reasonably priced, and the other sellers around the place have made it more available at a better price as well. Okay, let's have a quick look at it on some other paper. Now, here you can see I did quite a big swab because I wanted to get some of that lovely red sheen that Robert Oster's inks are so well known for. But there is haloing even on the broad nib and the fine nib to a degree here. I used for these samples Lamy Broad and a Lamy Fine. The broad nib I was having some issues with railroading, so I abandoned it for the rest of the test. But yeah, it does lay down a nice amount of ink, and you do get some beautiful shading there. And as can be expected, it performed pretty well on this paper with no bleed or feathering. Now, if we go down the line to copier paper, we have here the Reflex copy paper, which is 80 gram here, and I'm not sure if the camera will be able to pick it up, but there are hints of the haloing on this paper as well. But there is also a little bit of spread, particularly in the broader nib there, and spots where it started to bleed through. It is quite a wet ink, really, in comparison. Here it is on the Spyrex notepaper, which is sort of student notepaper. The colour becomes very muted here as the paper is quite absorbent, and the shading is less apparent, and of course we get a bit more bleeding and slight hints at that sort of spread or almost feathering occasionally, in the broader nib. So let's do a quick water resistance test here and see sort of how it responds to water. So as you can see already, it started to move around a little bit there on the paper. I'll dab it up now. We'll see what we've got. You can see it's picked up a lot of it in the paper. And yeah, as you expect, especially after having seen that chromatography where we get very little sort of hanging around sort of at the bottom, there's very little here as well. We get little hints of sort of the greys there left remaining on the paper, but most of the ink has been removed, and really you're left with very little detail. So let's do a quick summary of all of this. It's a well-behaved ink. On paper like Rodeo or Clairefontaine or Tomol River, you are going to get an ink that responds beautifully in a collection of different pens. It shades beautifully. It's a lovely looking ink. It's not a bright, vibrant blue. Once again, I'll just show you those, the Frankly Blue versus, say, the Amairo cards here. And it is a much more muted sort of color in that, in the lighter shades you get some similarities, but it's where the ink darkens that you get the real depth of this ink. I really recommend this ink. I think it's beautiful. It's great on the page, it's nice to write with, it behaves beautifully. So if this is the sort of colour that you're interested in, try and track down a bottle, check out Federalist pens, see if there's any left there, and just explore the Robert Oster line in general. They're beautiful inks, Australian made. All the packaging is environmentally friendly, made with environmentally friendly materials and processes. So check all that out. They're reasonably priced, they're widely available, and just really well behaved inks. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. And please feel free to drop me a message if you've got any products you think I should be looking at, or if you've got any questions, or if there's anything else you think is worth sharing on my channel. You can either contact me here on YouTube or at my social media platforms, which are all linked down below. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy your ink, and I'll talk to you later.